Sentient beings limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. All mother sentient beings limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. All mother sentient beings limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Thus, until I achieve Buddha, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with speech and mind. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all mother sentient beings limitless as the sky have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings limitless as the sky have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings limitless as the sky have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. Lord Vajradhara Tilipa Naropa Marpa Milarepa Gampopa Pamodupa Jikten Sumgön, Venerable Root Guru possessing the three kindnesses, rude and lineage gurus, idams, dharmapalas, pray please bestow blessings on my mind stream. unequal refuge, ornament of the world, whose renown pervades the 3,000 worlds, the undisputed conqueror Vajradhara, I pay homage to you, the Father. Jikten Gonpo, you alone are continually on my mind, compassionate one, please grant your blessings. Dispel the darkness of my mind, please bless me to realize the mind free from elaborations. On the northwest border of the land of Origination, in the heart of a lotus flower, endowed with the most marvelous attainments, you are renowned as lotus born, surrounded by many hosts of darkinis, following in your footsteps. I pray to you. Come inspire me with your blessings, Guru Pema Siddhi Hong. In the Dharma Dhatu palace of Akarnishta is the essence of the Buddhas of the 3 times, who directly reveals my mind as Dharmakaya, O root Guru. At your feet I supplicate. So good morning. Now page 100 and 102. So now we are in this section called Dependent Origination. So Dependent Origination, first of all, let's look at the footnote. Yeah? It says, as described in this passage, the word Tendrel acquired a wider meaning in Tibet and included practices such as those mentioned in the previous sentence. Jikten Sumgön was an outspoken critic of such practices. When the word Tendrel is used to refer to these practices, quotation marks are added. So the translators give us some explanation as to their translation choices. So the basic meaning of Tendrel literally is dependent origination, or also variously translated into English as interdependent arising, dependent arising. So the idea is that the basic notion is that of everything arises, everything appears, everything turns up, whether it's an experience, whether it's a thing, whether it's persons, doesn't matter. All composite phenomena arise through a complex coming together of causes and conditions. So that's the basic meaning of Tendrel in terms of how the Buddha taught what Tendrel is. Then in the Tibetan context, Tendrel has also gained the meaning of what you and I may call chance, or almost create, or the coming together of magical conditions for some magical thing to happen. Now, even this idea, right, does have its roots in the Buddha's basic teachings about Tendrel. But it has gained, unfortunately, culturally, it has gained a magical quality. Then, especially when this is associated with the rather sometimes unconventional behavior of the Indian mahasiddhas and then later Tibetan mahasiddhas, And these stories tend to emphasize their unconventional behavior. As I said, if you really think about it, their unconventional behavior only becomes significant, right? Only becomes like, oh, wow. If for the most part, they live, conventionally, right? If you're continuously unconventional like that, people are just like, that's kind of a nutcase. It's only powerful, it's only dramatic when you are truly not so predictable. And that inability for other people to predict has to come from a place of actual realization, not like just showing off or pretending to be crazy, looking for a dramatic response. It is more the idea that our conventional mind cannot fathom sometimes. Like sometimes, so it has to be like sometimes, not all times. So we have, even in the basic life story of the Buddha, when the Buddha would advise something to do something or not to do something, that conventionally looks like, oh, why did he say that? Like, well, that don't kind of make sense. And then later, it becomes obvious. Then you say, oh, see, the Buddha saw the Tendrel that is involved. Saw the Tendrel that is involved. And so then the Buddha was able to effectively intervene in a way that helped and benefited the other person. So there's also this famous story of, I believe this is Kātyāyana, one of the Buddha's disciples, that he went on one, as the daily practice of going into the town, to village, to receive alms, food. And then he witnessed a scene where he saw this woman carrying a child and was feeding her child fish, cooked fish. And there was a dog that kept coming and wanting some of this fish. Whatever fell on the ground, the dog ate, and the dog also sometimes, would jump up and this woman would like kick the dog because she wants to feed her child, And Kātyāyana saw that scene and kind of smiled. And then somebody else, I suppose, saw that and said, like, why are you smiling? And he said, he says, I could see all the Tendrel, the dependent arising of that situation. And he said, and it's so amusing that in samsara, we cycle around confused. One day enemy, another day loved one. One day loved one, another day enemy. And then he said, that dog was the woman's father. After the father passed away, it was born as the dog. And here she is kicking it. And that child that she is feeding the fish to used to be her worst enemy. Now she's kicking her father to provide for her worst enemy. So this is, this great arhat could see the Tendrel. So this is all Tendrel. Then also other like the more kind of cultural use of Tendrel. So we may say something like, for example, just to teach you some kind of Tibetan cultural norms, which is good to do. not to your non-Tibetan teachers, like it's not part of our culture, but our Tibetan teachers that we see, sometimes it's nice to do that, just as a gesture of appreciating and taking the time to understand someone else's culture. So, for example, if you give like maybe an offering to a Tibetan teacher, a Tibetan Lama, and the teacher may say, "Oh, no, 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 no," and you then can say, "Oh, no, 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 for Tendrel." You can say that for Tendrel, like this is nothing, but for good, dependent, for good conditions, please accept, this is for Tendrel. So it's used like that, in this sense as well. So here, dependent origination, genuine and false, meaning the right and the wrong ways, that we understand Tendrel, understand dependent origination. Yogis who attain the state of one taste. So these are, one taste is again using the 4 yogas of Mahamudra taught by Gampopa. So first it's like single pointedness, then second non-elaboration, then third is one taste, and then the fourth level is called Gourmet, without meditation. So for those yogis who have attained the state of one taste, the stage of one taste, they gain mastery in outer dependent origination, in the outer aspects of Tendrel. They have power over that now. And so they are skilled in methods for healing sickness or restoring sanity to the insane simply by turning around some little stones or pieces of wood. I mean, not literally, that's how you heal people, by turning stones or wood. He's saying it can be as simple as just that, and basically as insignificant as that. In contrast to the showy things that other people, charlatans, stage a whole show of Tendrel, doing this, doing that, all over the place. They are also skilled in methods for causing the non-abiding minds of themselves and others to abide. So Gilbert again wants to say, actually more important is them having the power, the skill to pacify minds, to calm and to soothe minds, agitated minds. What kind of dependent origination is this? Dependent origination of cause and result. Yeah. So he says, this is the dependent origin on understanding causality, karmic causality, which is said to be an object of knowledge that is only fully available with no error. Only Buddhas, even 10 Bhumi Bodhisattvas, can still get something wrong, in terms of seeing the exact working of, how this situation is exactly related to this set of conditions and circumstances. It says that that kind of knowledge is only accessible to complete and perfect Buddhas. But yogis who are on the third of these 4 stages of Mahamudra, because they have achieved this stage called one taste, which is they can fully, completely, and without error anymore, without forgetting anymore, see the single nature of all phenomena. And so there's some connections being made here between truly and fully seeing the single nature of all phenomena, meaning seeing the emptiness aspects of phenomena, and not in a superficial way, but in a kind of deep way and thorough way. They have seen that, they have realized that, and because of seeing and realizing that, it has also allowed them the power to understand Tendrel in a deeper way. Not as deep as Buddhists see and understand Tendrel, but way deeper than you and I. So this is called the dependent origination of cause and effect. Rather than, this is the next part he criticized, the so-called dependent origination of animal furs, feathers, practices with vulture feathered arrow, or wild shouting. These are the shamanic, if you want to call it that way. Not to insult, shamans, but it's saying all these showy things that people do, and then they call it Tendrel. That, somebody need to wear some kind of animal fur, stick a feather in his head, and then, when they go for their job interview, they'll be successful, or jumping around, making, fancy movements, while shouting. Among us here, there are also gomchen. Again, these gomchens, you great meditators, that deceive themselves and others with this kind of dependent origination. So he knows. He says, among this crowd here, there are some of you who do things like this. Now, it could be that these are not even like explicitly charlatans, how can I trick people? But they have tricked themselves into believing misguidedly that they are doing these special Tendrel to help others. And this is also what sometimes we might call, superstitious stuff. There's a fine line between, superstitious stuff and your guru helping you create Tendrel. And then if all you can see is, it's just superstition, then you might also miss, the guru helping to create the Tendrel for you. So when in doubt, ask, wait, did I miss that? With little discriminating insight and not shunning the ripened result. So with little ability to actually see and not fearing ripened results, almost like using Tendrel not in the way of understanding karmic causality, but using Tendrel as trying to outsmart karmic causality. See, there's something about this notion of Tendrel, even when it's done right, that seem to, right? For those of us who are more like kind of, rational minded, like to think of karma as like a very clean, certified public accountants, certified, accounting, this column all matches up, then we might even feel, this, even when the right idea of Tendrel seems to subvert the workings of karma. But no, of course not. If we have that kind of like, CPA type of karmic ledger, right? Then Buddhas have nothing to do anymore, right? How can Buddhas even help? No way, Jose, as they say. So It's also not the case. Sometimes when we talk about karma, we fall into this other extreme of thinking that everything is like a good accounting ledger. Not even 1 cent, can be fuzzy. But it's also not like that, because if it's like that, then what can Buddhas do then? And if Buddhas cannot help beings, why even bother? So that is also not the case, okay? But anyway, here it says, with little discriminating insight and not shunning the ripened results, they engage in so-called Tendrel, such as shouting wildly, or they have some dream of slight significance, which they then elaborate and exaggerate and explain the elaborations as their higher perception, and so on and so forth. What is the use of getting a meal or some other trifling thing by such means? Even like doing divination, things like that. Of course, it's part of the Tibetan Buddhist culture, and people go to lamas to get divinations. But as you become more and more steady as a Dharma practitioner, you will need less and less these kinds of things. It is better to maintain precious disciplined conduct. Better you pay attention to that. What is the use of higher perception or Tendrel without disciplined conduct? Because the true causes of suffering is acting in ways that create suffering, and disciplined conduct is the Buddha's protection. The protection that the Buddha gave every one of us, to protect ourselves, to protect others from needing to experience suffering. For the protector of the world, he called his teacher Mahamudra, which in turn his teacher used that to call him. The protector of the world is Jikten Gombo, or Jikten Sumgön. Jikten is world, Gombo, the protector of the world. Jikten Sumgön, protector of the three worlds. So it's a term of respect that Gyalpa Rinpoche used to refer to his teacher. And then one time his teacher saying, you call me that, yes, but you truly are Jikten Gombo. You truly are is a protector of the world. And so that's how we now, Rinchen Bel, which was his ordination name, translated into Sanskrit as Ratnashri, Rinchen Bel, and now we refer to him as Jikten Sumgön or Jikten Gombo. These are basically terms of respect that his teacher gave him. For the protector of the world, someone who keeps one vow purely for one day was to be preferred over 100 such siddhas, accomplished ones. The so-called siddhas, he says. Someone who keeps one vow sincerely for even just one day is superior to 100 so-called ruptop, accomplished ones, siddhas. This is what siddhas mean, mahasiddhas, the greatly accomplished ones. Moreover, Tendrel, such as using animal furs, feathers, while shouting, and so forth, is not explained in the sutras and the tantras. Why should such random things work? If they did, they would appear in the sutras and tantras. Don't engage in Tendrel like that. They deceive others. The actual cause and result are the Tendrel that is mastery over cause and result, that arises when the single taste is realized. Okay, this sentence can be translated differently. In part, is the translators are very faithful to the original Tibetan, and sometimes Tibetan can, when you translate it literally, it turns into this. The main point here is, when we talk about Tendrel, we are not talking about some magic thing except for the playing out of cause and effect. That's what he wants to emphasize. And in terms of understanding how cause and effect works, starting from the level of having realized single taste, you will begin to see more clearly. That's the meaning, yeah, of this sentence. In this way, all the Dharma that the Tathagata taught is Tendrel. The point is also made in Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. Within the treasury of the victorious one's words, there is nothing so prized and profound as this. And those who see it correctly see the Buddha, the perfect one who knows the truth. And also in the fundamental wisdom of the middle way, another Nagarjuna's treatises, there is not a single phenomenon that did not originate dependently. And also in the commentary on the Rice Seedling Sutra, it says, whoever sees dependent origination sees the three jewels. Whoever sees Tendrel. And the real meaning of Tendrel, he says, is karmic causality. And that is the genuine Tendrel, rather than Tendrel as magic. Now, divisions of correct understandings of Tendrel. 1. Dependent origination can be taught as one thing, which is, then you can also see it as the dependent origination, the Tendrel of impermanence. Here, impermanence means change. Specifically, change is possible. Yes, positive conditions can change into negative conditions, but mainly this point about change is possible is to encourage us, is to remind us. We need not be stuck in our afflictive states. We need not be stuck with our afflictive emotions. When you understand the Tendrel of impermanence, then whatever difficulties that you are in right now, if you know how to apply the teachings, then they don't need to be so oppressive. They don't need to be so oppressive. It overcomes the extreme views of permanence and extinction or nihilism. So the two extremes. Essentialism or nihilism. Essentialism is to say, stuck basically. This is suffering. This is miserable. And there's only that. Nihilism is, it makes no difference whatever you do. Do or don't do, in the end you die. So what's the point? These are the two extremes. But when you understand the Tendrel, that is impermanence, change is possible. And then you can become free of these extremes. And so, permanence and extinction, these two extremes are incompatible, contradict the teachings regarding Tendrel. Tendrel can be taught as two parts. So that is the one, now is the two. And if it is the two, then basically cause and effect. From an unwholesome cause, suffering arises. Where the cause is wholesome, happiness arises. I don't know, each time, as I've said, I see the word wholesome, unwholesome, I think of, sugarless corn cereal and donuts. So wholesome. Oh, that's unwholesome. Those of you who are old enough, you'll think of, Little House on the Prairie. Wholesomeness. Neither of these can change into the other. Since what is wholesome can never become something unwholesome, and what is unwholesome can never become something wholesome. That's the lesson of Little House on the Prairie. Characters are quite clear, these are the wholesome ones, these are the unwholesome ones. In this case, right, maybe to point out, whereas our experience of happiness and suffering is not certain, right? And so in that sense, uncertain. As another way of understanding what impermanence means, right? However, this uncertainty should not be extended to, well, it's uncertain stealing is bad. It's uncertain that stealing might bring suffering. Maybe it will bring good. There's no uncertainty about that. Or at least you should not have entertained that kind of uncertainty. Of course, life is not so black and white either. Yeah. But Kyopa Rinpoche is not blind to that. He says, but that's not because karmic principles work in a fuzzy way. It's because we don't understand and see more clearly. He says that causes will ripen accordingly. Mixed causes ripen in a mixed way. But in the mixed way doesn't mean like if you have a bunch of like peas and barley seeds you throw into the ground. What sprouts? Barley seed would sprout as barley shoots. Peas will sprout as pea greens. But superficially, let's say you have more barley seeds than pea shoots, peas, and then barley shoots come out, pea shoots come out. Superficially, you have more barley. So then you look and you say, oh, it's all barley. Look, the peas, even the peas became barley. He says, no, that's not the case. If you look closer, you will see peas are still shooting up as peas. Barleys are shooting up as barleys. So often when we act, right, it's not just one motivation. It's a mixed bag, as they say. And because of the mixed bag, sometimes the poisonous seeds will overwhelm. Again, overwhelm from afar. When you zoom in and see, oh, no. The good seeds are still producing. So this imagery of seeds is very interesting. I recently read a fairly long essay on the Buddha's use of the metaphor of seeds and the context of Indian agricultural practices during the Buddha's time. It's just fascinating. It says that that seed imagery, especially rice seeds, and rice is the staple food of Indians, even during the Buddha's time. So when he uses that analogy, people understood very deeply all the implications of that analogy. And so then he says, and against the rice seed, the rice that you can cultivate and eat, right? There is also a type of wild rice in the Indian context That is basically what we call invasives. And they are stronger than the edible rice, and they will take over very quickly. And if you're not vigilant about keeping your rice fields clear of that kind of rice, they will quickly take over and overwhelm. And then you end up with these seeds that cannot be consumed. So these wild rice seeds are then the causes of suffering. Then this basmati rice seeds, is the causes of happiness. Neither of these can change into the other. Since, that a virtuous seed cannot bring about cannot bring about the result of suffering. A non-virtuous action cannot bring about the result of happiness. This is the great tenet. Jikten Sumgön famously said, I do not subscribe to any tenet. A tenet here means an arrived at principle through a process of reasoning and logic. So valued in Buddhist scholastic circles, tenet systems, especially in Tibetan Buddhism, that is highly influenced by Nalanda Buddhist education. The study of tenet systems are considered very important, very helpful. But Gilbert says, I don't hold any tenet. But it says, if there is any tenet that you want me to say I subscribe to, then this is it. And all Dharma has to be understood on this foundation. Like produces like. Cause and effect. There are various incompatible interpretations of the story in which the Bodhisattva, as a ship's captain, named skilled in methods. And so even the captain, his name was skillful means, Upaya, killed the merchant called Black Spear Wielder. But we must consider this. The intentions of wishing to save the 1,000 lives and of wishing to save Black Spear Wielder from the lower realms did come from bodhicitta. You're all familiar with this story, right? There is a big merchant ship that went out to sea to accumulate wealth. On the way back, one of the passengers was plotting a mass murder so that he can basically steal all the wealth. And then the captain, called Upaya, skillful means, discovers this. And in order to prevent this 1,000 merchants from being murdered by this 1,001. So the lesson here is never get into a boat with 1,001 people. Keep it to 1,000, then you're safe, That one is always suspicious. It's like, wait, why is there 1,001? It's just like details that turn up in movies, right? You're like, wait a minute, that detail is going to come back again. They can imagine these people getting on the ship, Okay, 998, 999, 1,000, 1,001. Now we know 1,001. The one is going to cause this problem. So it says, Upaya, the captain, he wanted to prevent both the 1,000 from being murdered and the murderer from having the karma of killing 1,000. So he says that comes from bodhicitta. Yes. Now, is the intention to kill connected to that or not? This is something that cannot be found in the scriptures by just looking at it like an outer object. It says no clear answers, meaning there isn't like on the just kind of on the outer, there isn't anything that says, well, it is or it is not. But when it is viewed from the inner perspective of karma, the more subtle workings of the principle of cause and effect of karma, there is no connection with the two kinds. There's no connection. There's no connection between the two. I don't know. Again, I don't have the Tibetan here. I think we can translate it as there's no connection between the two, instead of there's no connection with the two kinds of bodhicitta. There's no connection between the two. Killing is not an act of bodhicitta. And so a result that corresponds with the act that is not bodhicitta did arise. Meaning, the negative karma of killing still arose for Upaya. The positive results of his bodhicitta also arose. He became Buddha Shakyamuni, But in between that life and Buddha Shakyamuni, he also had a lot of residue karma for killing to purify. And says, so don't confuse the two. Don't confuse the two. Next section, he elaborates on this. Very good, very important. But today, we're going to conclude now, as usual, with the aspiration prayers, the auspicious prayers, the dedications. So just to point out for some of you, those of you in Southeast Asia, you are more familiar with some of these traditions. This recitation on entering the city of Vaishali, and then the other recitation, the second one, the great destroyer of the three chilocosms. These verses here, in form and in substance, are very similar to the Pali Ratana Sutta that is also chanted for protection. It talks about the virtues and the qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So the first one here that we recite emphasizes the virtues. By the virtue of the Buddhas, by his attainments, achievements, qualities, may there be well-being. And then the second one is the virtues and the qualities of the noble Sangha. And by those virtues, may there be well-being. So this is also a practice of metta, maitri, wishing well-being and loving kindness unto all beings, then particularly to those most immediately surrounding you, around you. So this is said to have the ability, the power to create, to have an environment that is conducive to your Dharma practice. Yes, there might be the tender of house blessing, consecration, but if left and right there, you are not creating a positive condition, then not much, these rituals can do. But if we are always mindful and rejoicing in the qualities of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and then radiating those qualities to where we live, to where we are, then it can pacify. It can bring goodwill from all directions That's the meaning. He in whom all attachment and greed are conquered, all defilement gone, his mind at peace without harmful intent. He will bring you well-being. He leads all worldly beings to tread the path of liberation. The teacher of all dharmas, he will bring you well-being. The teacher, support of wandering beings, who for the sake of every living creature brings them all to master happiness. He will bring you well-being. The protector who with thoughts of love for all these beings sustains them always, just as he would his own child. He will bring you well-being. He who in samsara has been for all samsaric beings a support, an island and a friend. He will bring you well-being. He who has laid bare all phenomena, who is pure and free from deception, whose words are pure, whose very acts are purity, he will bring you well-being. This great hero who by taking birth with perfection attained his purpose and accomplished all his goals, he will bring you well-being. He whose birth when this whole earth with all its forests shook and trembled, brought joy for every living creature, he will bring you well-being. He who causes the seed of awakening the earth to quake in all 6 ways, and Mara to feel despair, he will bring you well-being. He who turning the wheel of the Dharma pronounced the truths of the noble ones and was extolled as a sage, the Muni. He will bring you well-being, the alluring one who defeated all the extremists with the Dharma and brought all assemblies under his influence. He will bring you well-being. May the Buddha bring you well-being. May Chakra and the gods bestow well-being, and may well-being from the Buddhas too be provided to you always by the Buddha's merit and power, and the wishes of the gods may whatever goal you seek this very day be accomplished. 2-legged beings, be well. 4-legged beings, be well. When you set out, be well. And when you return, be well. Be well in the daytime, be well in the night, be well at midday too. May all of you be always well. May all of you know no evil. Surrounded by 1,000 gods, the Buddha has arrived. So you with hateful thoughts disperse, and you whose nature is compassion remain. By the power of the true words of the Buddhas, Pratyeka Buddhas, Arhats, and those being trained, those who do harm to the world should be gone from this city. All sentient beings, all living creatures, all Buddhas, and every one of you, may you have nothing but happiness. May you all be free from illness. May you all see what is good. May all of you know no evil. May whatever Buddhas are assembled here, all those who live upon the earth or in the sky, act always lovingly for human beings and practice Dharma day and night. Homage to the 3 jewels in this world or beyond. There is nothing, not even a precious gem in the higher realms that equals the thus gone one, the God of gods, supreme among humans. Thus he is called the most precious gem. By this truth may there be well-being here. There is nothing at all comparable to the Dharma of uncompounded quiescent ambrosia, the uncompounded ambrosia of extinction and dispassion, discerned by the sage of the Sakyas through his knowledge. Thus it is called the most precious gem. By this truth may there be well-being here. There is nothing comparable to the absorption that perceives the Vajra-like non-dual path, the manifestation in due order of what is most desired. The permanent accomplishment of the teacher's absolute practice, thus it is called the most precious gem. By this truth may there be well-being here, the 8 great kinds of person praised and called the 4 pairs, extolled as venerable by the thus gone one, the incomparable person, the great sage, yield great fruits when all for two like seeds planted in the fertile field. This is called the most precious gem of the Sangha. By this truth may there be well-being here. Since those who strive with firm resolve and enter Gautama's teaching gain access to ambrosia, remove darkness, and attain nirvana, they are called the most precious gem of the Sangha. By this truth may there be well-being here. As soon as they connect with this vision, believe in the transitory collection, ethical discipline in the form of extreme austerity, and doubt are simultaneously cast off, and they see the truths of the noble ones. Thus they are called the most precious gem of the Sangha. By this truth may there be well-being here. With body, speech, and or mind, they never produce the threefold evil deeds, and when they are when they suddenly do, they do not conceal them, and in that way their view is not tainted with grasping. Thus they are called the most precious gem of the Sangha. By this truth may there be well-being here. Just as a threshold beam planted in the ground is unmoved by winds from the 4 directions, so are the members of the Sangha of noble ones who have insight into the highest path of the noble ones. Thus they are called the most precious gem of the Sangha. By this truth may there be well-being here. Those who cultivate with profound wisdom the eloquently taught truths of the noble ones and consider giving away even their own bodies never encounter the 8 perils. Thus they are called the most precious gem of the Sangha. By this truth may there be well-being here. Just as a flame extinguished by the wind cannot be taken up and counted, so do the offspring of the Buddhas become indemonstrable once they have discarded all fetters. Thus they are called the most precious gem of the Sangha. By this truth may there be well-being here. May all sentient beings moving or still be well here, and may they pay homage to the Buddha, the supreme teacher venerated by gods and humans. May there be well-being here today. May all sentient beings moving or still be well here. May they pay homage to the Dharma, the peaceful dispassion venerated by gods and humans. May there be well-being here today. May all sentient beings moving or still be well here. May they pay homage to the Sangha, the supreme assembly venerated by gods and humans. May there be well-being here today. May all beings moving or still be well here. May whatever Buddhas are assembled here, all those who dwell upon the earth or in the sky, all act always lovingly toward all creatures, and practice Dharma day and night. By the truth that the victorious one, having vanquished his foes, spoke truthfully without falsehood, may there be well-being here, and may all be delivered from grave perils. May the majesty of all the Buddhas, the majesty of the particular Buddhas, the power of the Arhats, and all the secret mantra holders by the wisdom of Shariputra, the supernatural power of Kātyāyana, the vision of Aniruddha, and the ascetic practices of Kashyapa, by the previous attainments of Kaundinya, the learning of Ananda, the benevolence of Brahma, and the supremacy of Shatakratu, by the territories of the guardians of the world, the power of Maheshwara, the might of the generals, and the supernatural splendor of Hariti, through their might and majesty, may poison be removed from me. In the language of Indriya Marya Maitri Pranidhana Raja, in the language of Tibet Pakpa Chambe Monlam Gyalpo, in the English language, the noble Maitreya's king of aspirations, homage to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Ananda, in the past when the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Maitreya was engaged in the Bodhisattva practices, he would drape his upper robes over one shoulder, bend his right knee to the ground, and join his palms together. 3 times a day and 3 times a night, he would then concentrate on all the Buddhas and make the following aspiration: homage to all Buddhas, homage to the Bodhisattvas who possess the divine vision of seers, and homage to the hearers as well. Homage to Bodhicitta, the heart of awakening that keeps the lower realms at bay, that shows us the way to the higher realms and leads us to the state beyond aging and death. I go beyond the awakened ones to confess any and all misdeeds that I may have committed while under the sway of mind. May all merit occur through the 3 kinds of actions become a seed for my omniscience and inexhaustible awakening. The Buddhas are aware and rejoice in any offering made to the awakened ones throughout the Buddha views of the 10 directions. And so do I too rejoice. I hereby confess all negative actions. I hereby rejoice in everything meritorious. I hereby pay homage to all Buddhas. May I attain the supreme wisdom state. I exhort each and every bodhisattva dwelling in the 10 directions and upon the 10 bodhisattva levels to awaken now to supreme enlightenment, and as they awaken to sublime enlightenment, may they turn the wheel of Dharma so as to tame the demons and all their hordes and bring benefit to every living being. May the beat of the great drum of Dharma free beings from their suffering for unimaginable billions of eons. May the awakened ones teach Dharma and remain. I beg you, best of humans, look upon us drowning in the mud of desires, bound by the ropes of craving, and in other ways absolutely trapped. May the Buddhas not level criticism against those of impure minds. Instead, may they give love to beings and free them from the ocean of existence. May I train in the likeness of the perfectly awakened Buddhas of the present, past, and future, and uphold the Bodhisattva conduct. May I bring to completion the 6 perfections and lead to the end the 6 classes of beings. May I manifest at last the 6 supernatural super knowledges and reach the unsurpassed state of awakening. May I realize the truth of emptiness, in which all is birthless and non-arising, without intrinsic nature, without location, with neither mental process nor substance, just like the great sage, the Buddha himself. May I realize the truth of selflessness, in which beings do not exist, nor any living things, nor an individual, nor any kind of person. May I practice generosity free from stinginess, without entertaining any notion of substantiality, nor any belief in the self, nor egotistical clinging, so that the benefit may reach all beings. Since material things do not exist concretely, may all my needs be spontaneously met. Since all material things are subject to decay, may I master the perfection of generosity. with discipline completely flawless, discipline that is perfectly pure, and discipline devoid of arrogance. May I master the perfection of discipline with absence of anger, in other words, with patience akin to how the earth, water, and fire elements and the wind element as well dwell not anywhere. May I complete the perfection of patience with persistent application of diligence. May I be ever joyful and free from laziness, and with strength in both body and mind. May I complete the perfection of diligence with illusion-like meditative concentration and bravery-inspiring meditative concentration and Vajra-like meditative concentration. May I master the perfection of meditation. Acting with the three gates of liberation, with the equality of the three times and the threefold knowledge, may I master this perfection of wisdom. May I be praised by all Buddhas as I beam with light and splendor and with the diligence of a bodhisattva. May all my aims be accomplished as I engage in this very conduct. May I, the one known as Maitreya, bring to completion the 6 perfections and reach the 10 bodhisattva levels. At the very moment I pass away, may I joyfully take rebirth into Shita heaven and swiftly delighting the Lord Maitreya, receive his prophecy of my awakening. Changchu Sem Cho Rinpoche Ma Ge Banam Ge Gyurche Ge Ba Nyam Pa Me Pa Ya Gong Ne Gong Du Be Sure. Okay, we are done today. You all have
Happy birthday, Lopana.
Oh, thank you.
Have a long life and stay healthy.
Feliz cumpleaños, Dr. Lai.
Happy birthday. Feliz cumpleaños.
Feliz cumpleaños.
Yes. So speaking
Feliz
of magic,
cumpleaños, Dorje Lopon.
thank you. Speaking of magic and Tendrel, for me, I think it is a good Tendrel that today we reach the point where Kyoba Rinpoche says, this is the great tenet. Like I don't have any tenets, he says, but if anyone later in another place towards the end of his life, he says to his disciples, he says, if people ask, what is the special tenet of your guru? He says, you tell them, my guru says he has no tenet. And he says, but if they insist, and say, what is, surely there is something that is his main tenet. He says, then in that case, if they insist, you say, my guru's main tenet is the tenet of the unmistaken nature of cause and effect. So I see it as very auspicious. Without planning, today we arrive at that statement here. He says, this is the great tenet, the tenet of the interdependence, the dependent origination of cause and effect. So may we continue to create, the causes and conditions, and we create the causes. May other people around us provide the conditions for the experience of happiness. Limited happiness is still happiness, and then may all these limited happiness point us in the direction of lasting happiness. Yeah, so thank you so much, all of you. Flowers. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Gracias.
Felicidades.
Bye.
Feliz cumpleaños, Dorilupa.
Oh, gracias.
¿Cómo?
Okay.
Feliz cumpleaños.